Welcome back to High Cheese with Darren Maloney. Today is February 7th, 2022. Well, I want to thank everybody. We've had some good success since we launched a couple of weeks ago over all of our platforms. And I've received a couple of questions about what is high cheese? And let me just explain before I go on. High cheese is a baseball term. Cheese is a very good fastball by a pitcher. And high cheese is a very good fastball up in the strike zone. It's a somewhat of an aggressive move by a pitcher against a batter because there's a constant battle between who's going to control the plate between the pitcher and the batter. So again, it's a somewhat aggressive term. I think sometimes we're a little aggressive here, but that's what we are, and that's how I just wanted to explain. I hope you understand it. If you don't understand it, just email me at darrenm3225@gmail.com if I wasn't good enough with defining the term here. So let's switch to what's been going on today. So what I'm going to talk about first is the meltdown that the media had over the censure of Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So if you didn't know that what happened, I think it was last week, the Republican Party censured Kinzinger and Cheney because of their involvement with the January 6th committee. And look, it caused a lot of problems with the press, and oh my God, this is terrible. And now they're trying to bring up that, the Republican Party is splintering. And no, it's not true. A couple of people that don't like it, but the Republican Party is firm. The Republican Party is behind Trump. And that's just a reality. There was an old saying. I remember I went to a basketball camp once, and I don't remember who said it, but he said, the dogs bark, but the caravan continues to move. And that's what's happening here, I think. Trump's got control of the Republican Party. There'll be people barking on the edges, but it's Trump's party right now. And I think we're better off with it. So anyway, the press doesn't like that. So the press is going to do everything that they can to throw a wrench into this and make the Republican Party look weak. So they're making a big to-do about it, and they're trying to make it appear that the Republican Party is fracturing, which isn't the case. The additional thing that they're having a meltdown over has to do with the last paragraph of the resolution the Republicans put together in the censure resolution. And let me just read it to you. And it says here, whereas Representatives Cheney and Kinzinger are participating in a Democrat-led persecution of ordinary citizens engaged in legitimate political discourse, and they are both utilizing their past professed political affiliation to mask Democratic abuse of prosecutorial power for partisan purposes. Therefore, be it resolved, Now, the media's having a meltdown over this. Oh my God, the Republicans are they're supporting the riots on January 6th, and isn't it terrible? So I'm just going to go to a clip right now, and it's from this weekend's Meet the Press.
His allies are hitting back. A year ago, on January 6th, the RNC issued a statement saying its members strongly condemned the violence, calling it an attack on our country and its founding principles. But now,
all of those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. The Republican Party declared Friday the January 6th attack was simply ordinary citizens engaged in legitimate political discourse.
Now, you see what he's trying to do? He's trying to conflate normal people that showed up at that protest with those people that got out of hand. And this is why the press is not respected. And quite frankly, people don't listen to him anymore. And these people are being persecuted. Let me just give you a definition of persecution. You tell me if a lot of these people that have been called to the floor by this January 6th committee, private citizens that didn't need to go there. But the only reason they're there is they're just harassing people because of their association with Donald Trump. And they're going to make them pay. They're going to make them shell out a ton of money in legal fees. They're going to abuse them, and they're going to make them look bad. And that's above and beyond the people that law enforcement has harassed as a result of the protest on January 6th. There are a ton of people that you don't read about that have been harassed by the FBI unnecessarily, and you have those people that are in the D.C. jail. Now, again, I've always said that yeah, some of them did some bad things, but they shouldn't be sitting in the jail right now. They should be afforded due process. So let me give you the definition of persecuting. A program or campaign to exterminate, drive away, or subjugate people based on their membership in a religious, ethnic, social, or racial group. I think the January 6th committee is doing this. And I think the FBI has done that to some people in the past. All right, let's switch to Mike Pence. I'm going to play you a clip from Mike Pence. And I don't know what he was doing or what he was thinking about, but let me play this. I just don't understand this.
But there are those in our party who believe that as the presiding officer over the joint session of Congress, that I possess unilateral authority to reject electoral college votes. And I heard this week that President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone. And frankly, there is no idea more un-American than the notion that any one person could choose the American president. Under the Constitution, I had no right to change the outcome of our election.
Well, no one was asking you to unilaterally change the election. They were asking you to take a second look at some of the states whose electoral votes were being contested. That's all he wanted you to do. Just a second look. Nothing wrong with that. This whole thing and this whole speech about his position, about the Constitution said that he had a unilateral right to pick the presidency. Well, he's just off base there. But he clearly could have just delayed this and taken a second look at the contested states. Now, Pence is a Christian, from what I hear. He's supposed to be a good guy. And, just because you're a good guy and a Christian doesn't mean you possess wisdom. And I think that Pence did not make a wise decision on January 6th. And the polling today says this, because the last polls I looked at, I think there were 40% of independent voters said that Biden was illegitimate. And a significant amount of the overall population does not think that Biden is a legitimate president. So maybe if Pence made the decision, take a second look at this, we wouldn't have this problem where we are today. And again, I don't understand why Pence did this. Now, additionally, what I wanted to point out is that Congress is working on legislation to change the Electoral Count Act. And in the change, they want to make the VP just a ceremonial position. Well, clearly, if they're changing this, the VP clearly had something more than just ceremonial authority in the process. All right, here's what I want to do. I want to switch to Russia. And what we got going on today are two things. We've got President Macron from France is visiting Putin today. He's trying to see if he can talk Putin out of war or whatever. Now, I'm quoting an article from CNBC. It says Monday's meeting in Moscow is extremely important for the French president, who has been pushing for a more independent European Union in terms of defense, while he also faces an election in April when his current tenure ends. Quote, I have always had a deep dialogue with President Putin, and it is our responsibility to build historic solutions. There is, I think, an openness from President Putin to achieve this, Macron told the Saturday Journal. The EU, which brings together 27 nations, does not have a common military capacity. Instead, it relies on NATO for defense matters, where the United States plays a fundamental role in decision-making. So if you have Macron going over there, you know that the Biden administration has failed in every sense of the way, in every step of the way on this Russian situation. Again, this is what you get when you have weak leaders. Now, also, we've got the German chancellor visiting Biden today. Because guess what? Germany is not on the same page with the United States regarding this Nord Stream 2. Now, if you can remember, I think it was last week, one of the talking heads from the State Department said that Nord Stream 2 will not move forward if there's a war. And apparently that didn't sit well with Germany. Germany, two things, and I think I mentioned in a previous episode. Germany, well, they need heat. And second of all, you've got the former Chancellor Schroeder that is working for Gazprom, the Russian gas company. And Gazprom's one of Gazprom's affiliates is building Nord Stream 2. So I think they're trying to hash this thing out, but I would be very surprised if Germany stays quiet on this. Germany has to say something. I got a feeling the U.S. is going to come in and try to say, hey, look, we'll get you an alternate source of natural gas, but that's going to take time. And it's going to spike up the cost of natural gas, too. So from a mechanical standpoint, I'm not sure how quickly you can do this. And I have absolutely no confidence that the Biden administration can do this. Okay, I'm going to go to a clip with Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan is Biden's NSA advisor, and he's going to talk about Germany. And let me play it, and we'll get back and discuss it. One thing I wanted to point out, don't forget, this is the Jake Sullivan that keeps on showing up in a lot of John Durham's investigations. So we want to see where he goes one day. Okay, let's go to the tape.
That Europe has distance to travel when it comes to weaning themselves off of Russian gas and diversifying their energy supplies. President Biden has directed his team to look to find from other places in the world LNG, liquefied natural gas cargoes that can be sent to Europe in the event of a contingency, so that the United States' help to Europe isn't merely in the deployment of troops or the supply of economic aid, that we can help coordinate the delivery of gas to keep Europeans warm through the rest of the winter. That work is well underway, and President Biden and Chancellor Scholz will discuss it further tomorrow when the Chancellor is here in Washington.
It's his understanding in private that Germany has given the United States assurance that if Putin invades Ukraine, the pipeline is done, that they are willing to suspend the pipeline. But they won't say that publicly. Will the German Chancellor say that publicly with the President tomorrow?
Now you think about that poor German Chancellor. He's sitting across the table from an incompetent administration that had screwed up the Afghanistan withdrawal, screwed up everything else that they touched. And he's got to get insurances from these guys that, oh yeah, we'll find you natural gas if we shut down Nord Stream 2. We'll get you natural gas, yes. I tell you, I wouldn't have 1 ounce of confidence that these guys would be able to come through on what they say. With their track record, absolutely not. So I'm kind of looking forward to see what the German Chancellor says today. Okay, let's take a 2-minute break. Okay, welcome back to High Cheese. Now let's go up north to our hero Canadian truckers. Let me just give you an update on what happened over the weekend. We had thousands and thousands of people come in for the weekend and to protest up in Ottawa, and apparently they're having a good old time. These truckers, they have a well-organized supply chain, and you shouldn't be surprised. They're truckers. They do logistics for a living. So you know they're going to have some type of supply chain set up, which they do. They bought in portable saunas. They have a community kitchen. And you know those inflatable bouncy castles for kids? Some people rent them for parties for their kids. They bought those in too. And they're having a good old time. They're playing street hockey, the national pastime up there. So nothing could be finer for them. Now, there were additional convoys in Edmonton and in Quebec City. Unfortunately, there were 4 people injured in the Edmonton convoy when an anarchist drove his car into a crowd of people in the convoy. Now, the crazy people are on the other side. They're not on the trucker side. The crazy people are on the other side. Now, up in Quebec City, they had a convoy up there, and they had a protest over the weekend, and there was about 500 people that showed up. And these Quebec truckers, they did a really nice thing. What they did is said, look, we're coming up for the day, and then we're going to leave because the Winter Carnival is up there, and they don't want to interfere with the Winter Carnival up there. It's really it's a nice thing up there, and a lot of people like going to it, and it really is. Quebec City is proud of it. So the truckers did a really nice thing. Said, look, we'll leave. We don't want to interfere with the carnival. And we'll come back in a couple of weeks after the carnival is over. Isn't that nice? Truckers are nice. A couple of things happened that could impact this. There was a state of emergency declared in Ottawa, and that's going to give the police a little more leeway in cracking down on the truckers. And there are some reports that they're taking jerry cans and they're taking the saunas away and the food kitchens that they set up. There's suddenly not, they're dismantling from reports. And I'm not sure what kind of effect that's going to have. 2 things I've heard is, one is I've heard that they have set up these care package centers where, I don't know if you remember during the war, these different communities got together and they created care packages that they mailed off to Iraq. And this is similar to that. The only thing different is they're sending it to the truckers. And the other thing I heard, too, is that there's a rumor out there that there's a jerry can convoy starting. People want to start walking toward Ottawa with jerry cans to fill up the truckers. And I got to tell you, it's going to be hard for these police to really do this. And I'll tell you why. One thing is, another rumor I heard is a lot of police they're siding with the truckers and they're calling in sick or they're not responding to overtime. And speaking of the police, I just don't know if the size of the force up there is large enough to really have an impact on the truckers. They may, but Ottawa is 2,700 kilometers, and they only have 1,300 patrolmen. And I'm not sure that's enough to secure the rest of the city, fight crime in the rest of the city, and address the truckers. I just don't know that's going to happen. Then, you hear rumors that, the cops are calling in sick or not responding to overtime requests. And the funny thing, too, is that, I don't know if this is true, but the police initially called these local tow truck companies that to come in and start towing these trucks. And they all said, we got coronavirus, we're not going to do it. Well, I'm calling it no-go coronavirus. That's what they have, no-go coronavirus. So that's where we are now. And the other thing that came out is that there was one of the judges approved an order to stop the honking temporarily in downtown Ottawa. Apparently, it's annoying a lot of the Karens down there. And I'm sure you'll find, if you did any investigation, you'll probably find that the judge that did this probably lives downtown. And they just don't want to be annoyed by the honking. God forbid if a trucker should make extra noise and disrupt my daily gin and tonic at the end of the day. So, that's where we are right now. Now, the interesting thing that I want to tell you, there is some positive things going on. And let me just tell you, and this is interesting. The former premier of Newfoundland, Brian Peckford, just filed a lawsuit to stop the mandatory vaccination requirement for air travelers. I think he just filed the case either today or he did it on Friday. Now, let me tell you something. Apparently, this former premier, Mr. Peckford, is the only surviving drafter and signatory of the 1982 Constitution and Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And he is the main applicant in this case. Look, I don't know a lot about Canadian history, but apparently this is, this is a well-respected person in Canadian history. And that's what they're doing. And the other thing, too, New Jersey is banning the mask mandates. So I guess the Canadian truckers had a lot of influence on what Governor Phil Murphy did in New Jersey. Now, isn't that nice? Now, maybe all these other governors and everyone else can just stop banning these mandates. It really is. It's time. It's time to stop this. With that said, I'm going to... This is comical. I'm going to show you a tape, and this is a tape of a Karen, a male Karen, having a meltdown. And some of you may have seen it already, but I just have to play it again because it's absolutely comical. So let's go to it, and what we'll do is we'll talk about it when we come back.
I lost my mind because I haven't slept in 5 months. It has to stop.
Then it stops when the government lifts the mandates.
You idiot! The mandates are provincial, not federal. The mandates, if you're mad about wearing a mask or getting a vaccine, go talk to Doug Ford.
Okay, well, you know what?
The fuck minister has nothing to do with this.
Actually, he does.
Do you know anything about civics?
Yes, I do, because didn't the federal government make vaccine mandates for all federal employees?
No,
and all federal...
It's a requirement for your job.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the mandates, man. Karen! Karen!
Well, that's a choice.
It's not a choice. The honking will continue until freedom improves. Simple as that.
Who said we have no right in the country?
I do want to listen. This is too much.
Wasn't that comical? Now, 2 years ago, this guy was a yoga teacher. But 2 years of lockdowns and this psyop about the vaccines makes people crazy. Now, I like when the truckers schooled him on civics. Here's a soy boy that thinks he knows everything about everything, and the truckers just schooling him on civics. Now, speaking of psyop, have you ever noticed these doctors and these experts that you see on TV talking about the vaccine, and they are always saying, well, if the vaccinated have a 10 times better chance of surviving COVID, or the unvaccinated have a 20% chance, greater chance of dying than the vaccinated. But they never tell you the raw number. And there's a reason they never want to tell you the wrong number, because both are relatively low chances. Now, here's a perfect example. Again, I got this from RFK's book. During the Pfizer study, when they were testing it to see how well it worked, the vaccine saved 1 out of every 22,000 people. So Pfizer had their control group, and in the control group, 2 out of 22,000 people died. And they had the vaccine group, where 1 out of 22,000 people died. So they took a difference, and they saved 1 life out of 22,000. Now, Pfizer and the media love to package this, and what they love to say is that, look, it's 100%. They save 100%. Because, 1 times 100% is 2. But if you take a close look, both numbers are insignificant. Saving 1 life statistically out of 22,000 is not statistically significant when you're looking at a vaccine. But you'll never hear that from the doctors in the media, these so-called experts on TV. You just won't. Because if you knew the raw numbers, you may not want to take it. Now, this is why American PhDs are the most vaccine hesitant, because they get it. They know how to run probabilities. They know how to ask the right question. And isn't it funny? PhDs were number 1. Those with a high school education were number 2. Additionally, I came across this disturbing study posted in Science Direct, and I think it's some Ivy League study. And what they did is, the title The title of the study is Persuasive Messaging to Increase COVID-19 Vaccine Uptake Intention. Essentially, what it is a PSYOP. And what they did is they tested what message would best manipulate the American people into taking the vaccine, and used some variables. They said, let's try a self-interest take. Okay, take the vaccine, it'll help you. Another one they had was a community interest variable. Here's another one. They used a variable, community interest plus guilt. Well, imagine how guilty you will feel if you choose not to get vaccinated and spread COVID to someone you care about. Then there's another one, community interest plus embarrassment. Imagine how embarrassed and ashamed you would be if you choose not to get vaccinated and spread COVID-19 to someone you care about. Here's another one, community interest plus anger. Imagine how angry you will be if you choose not to get vaccinated and spread COVID to someone you care about. And then there's another one about not bravery. They say, firemen, first responders, they're all taking it, so you should take it too because they're working so hard for you and you should take it for them. And you're really not being brave by not taking it. You're just being a coward. Number 8, trust in science. Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the most effective means of protecting your community. The only way we can beat COVID is by following scientific approaches such as vaccination. Prominent scientists believe that once available, vaccines will be the most effective tool to stop the spread of COVID. The people who reject getting vaccines are typically ignorant or confused about the science. Really. I think Fauci's a little confused. Not getting vaccinated will show people that you are probably the sort of person who doesn't understand how infections spread and who ignores or are confused about science. So PhDs and high school educated people are confused? I don't think so. But this is the whole PSYOP. And I'm sure that the Biden administration looked at something like this or did a study on their own. They love focus groups. Maybe they did focus groups. But it's all about manipulating you. And this is what they've been pounding people with for the past 2 years. That plus the lockdowns. You wonder why people were flipping out like that guy in Ottawa. Now, I just want to take you to an article from CNN about Xavier Becerra. He's the head of HHS. Apparently, he's on the hot seat. I think the Biden administration was going to use him as a scapegoat of why their whole policy is screwed up. So CNN came in to save the day because I'm sure Becerra knows somebody at CNN. And I just want to show you a comment he makes. And he says, and this is Becerra, he goes, the American people don't have a lot of time to try to do the science and crunch the numbers, Becerra said. They expect experts to give them the answers. This is totally opposite of what the American people want and should have. They want the real numbers. They want the truth. And let them make the decision. They don't want you making the decision for them. He thinks you do. Biden thinks you do. And all these big government and big corporations think they do because they're the experts according to themselves. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I'm going to switch to the Olympics right now, and I'm going to play a clip of Nancy Pelosi. I hate doing it. I don't like her, but let's play it, and we'll discuss it after we come back.
I would say to our athletes, you're there to compete. Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless. I know there is a temptation on the part of some to speak out while they are there. I respect that, but I also worry about what the Chinese government might do to their reputations, to their families.
Oh boy. This clip tells me that we should be weak and we should be afraid. And it's being told by a person who's going to benefit from China down the road, personally. And that's what disturbs me about this clip. Be weak and be afraid. Now, I don't even know why we're at the Olympics anyway, because Biden's not strong enough to start a boycott. The athletes should not be there. And I have a hard time rooting for the athletes today. I mean, I just found out there's two Americans that are competing for the Chinese. One is a skier, one is an ice skater. Then I find out that there's hockey players that are playing for the Chinese team. This is terrible. Look, let me give you a couple of names. Jake Chelios, Jason Fram, Denis Osipov, Ty Schultz, Ryan Sproul, Paris O'Brien, Ethan Werrick, Brandon Yip. This is embarrassing. These hockey players should be embarrassed. Now, I heard I think there's 11 Canadians, 7 Americans that are playing for the Chinese team. You really should be embarrassed. You're competing for another country. Don't you care about your own country? Don't you want to represent your own country? And this is a problem I have with the athletes anyway. You know, we're sending these athletes over there. A good chunk of them hate America, and they're only doing it so they can make money down the road. And I've got to give my taxpayer money to the Olympic Association? I mean, this is just a disgrace. Look, I think the Olympics, until we can change things, the Olympics should just stop. It's no more about countries. It's about globalism. I mean, I remember 30, 40 years ago, Olympics meant something. You wanted to compete for your country. Today, a lot of these athletes, they don't care. It's about themselves. And the United States to them is nothing more than transactional, and they don't love this country. So there's no reason for me to support them. Now, look, I'm sure there's a couple of good athletes out there that really love this country, and that's fine. But there's too many that don't. And then additionally, I find out that NBC won't air an ad criticizing China. I guess it says here, Rep. Michael Waltz claims that NBC refused to air an ad criticizing companies in the United States for funding the 2022 Olympics. This is absurd. We shouldn't even be in China. It's a communist country. They push slavery, and all of our companies want to do business with them, and it's a disgrace. And at some point, all of these companies are going to have to true up. Are they going to be loyal to this country, or are they going to be loyal to a communist country? Now, right now, NBC has made their bed with a communist country, and anybody else that advertises on NBC has made their bed with a communist country that pushes slavery, and it's a shameful act. Okay, let's take a look at the stock market. Today, Monday night, the Dow Jones finished unchanged. The S&P 500 finished down $16.66, 0.37%. And NASDAQ finished down $82.34 for a 0.58% drop. Oil was down 0.05% to 91.27. Gold was up 0.04% to $1,822.50. Silver was down 0.57% to $22.94. Take a look at crypto. Bitcoin finished up $6.80. Ethereum's down 0.55% to 3146.46. And then XRP is up 11.13%, 88 cents. Now, XRP has had a nice run up over the past few days because there's been a lot of rumors out there. One is that Coinbase is going to relist them. Coinbase delisted them last year or year and a half ago when the SEC filed suit against XRP. Now, the entire lawsuit from the SEC is essentially to determine whether XRP is a crypto or not, or whether it is a security. I'm hearing rumors that that's going to settle, but I don't know. I mean, I give a lot of credit to XRP's lawyers. They pushed back successfully over the past year and a half against the SEC. So who knows if they want to settle? I don't know. But any settlement or any conclusion to this will certainly help XRP. And let me take a look at the economic calendar for the week. Let's see. On Tuesday, we've got international trade come at 8:30, 11 a.m. On Tuesday, we'll have real household debt year over year. We had 1.8% increase last month. Okay, on Wednesday, we've got wholesale inventories. On Thursday, we've got initial jobless claims, continuing jobless claims. We have the consumer price index month to month. We have core CPI month to month. And then we have the consumer price index year over year. And we have the core CPI year over year. So Thursday's going to be big. And then Friday, we have the University of Michigan consumer sentiment preliminary. And then we have the 5-year University of Michigan inflation expectations. And that's preliminary. Earnings reports. On Tuesday, we have Pfizer. On Wednesday, we have Glaxo, CVS, O'Reilly Parts. And these are just the bigger names I'm naming. This, hundreds reporting this week. On Thursday, we have Coke, Pepsi, AstraZeneca. And then on Friday, we have Under Armour. Well, today continues to be a bad day for Facebook. I think it dropped 5% today, and they got more bad news. Peter Thiel is resigning from the board of directors. And then we have a story here that Meta could shut down Facebook and Instagram throughout Europe if regulators are unable to hammer out a permanent data transfer deal, the company warned in a recent SEC filing. The claim from Mark Zuckerberg's company came as officials in the European Union and U.S. attempt to craft a new transatlantic data transfer agreement. The EU's Court of Justice struck down a previous agreement, dubbed Privacy Shield, in 2020, due to concerns it could not ensure data security for Europeans once it is sent to the U.S. So let's see. We have, I think it was a 25% drop last week. We have 5% drop this week. And let's see. Maybe we could drive it down to 0. Okay, just a couple of tidbits before we close. The first one is that the U.S. is in negotiations with Iran on their nuke treaty. And our crack staff in Washington, they just took down some sanctions on Iran. What they did is they took a waiver that now allows China and Russia to build nuclear facilities in Iran. Now, these nuclear facilities are only to be used for non-military purposes, but who knows? Now, I just find it really ironic that here we are in possibly a situation to possibly sanction Russia over Ukraine. So why are we lifting sanctions on Iran that would benefit Russia? Now, what happens if Russia comes in, they start building facilities in Iran, and say the war starts and we start sanctioning them, Russia. And what are we going to do if Iran says, no, we're going to keep Russia here? There's just no consistency across the board with how this Biden administration negotiates anything. So on one hand, in Iran, you're going to allow Russian companies to come in and build nuclear facilities in Iran. At the same time, on the right hand, you're going to sanction Russia. It's just not consistent. But I'm not surprised. The second thing is Michael Avenatti has been convicted. It says here, disgraced attorney Michael Avenatti was convicted Friday of stealing from the client that helped him flirt with fame. He was found guilty of wire fraud and aggravated identity theft after he surreptitiously diverted $300,000 that rightfully belonged to Stormy Daniels, the performer who hired Avenatti to represent her in litigation against the former President Trump. Now, remember Avenatti about a year ago, or actually more than a year ago, remember CNN kept on pumping Avenatti up. This is the guy that's going to take on, Trump. He's got the moxie. He's got this. He's got that. CNN, I'm not surprised that you're not a good judge of character. With all the clowns that have worked in your company, you probably didn't even notice that Avenatti was a creep and a thief. Well, on that note, you have a good week, and I shall see you Friday or Saturday, and it really has been a pleasure, and I want to thank everyone for listening. If you have any questions, just email me at darrenm3225@gmail.com. and I'll answer you. Again, have a good weekend, and thank you so much